But we return first to what the Mayor of New Plymouth has called a kick in the guts. Business New Zealand has called crude and unnecessary. And Greenpeace has called a huge win for climate and people power. If you've just tuned in, we were looking at this earlier in the program, the government's decision to end new oil and gas exploration in offshore waters. The word new is key. The 57 exploration permits already in existence stand, and the government has repeatedly evoked the likelihood of further oil and gas finds in the areas those permits cover. But in a three-party coalition government, this is a big win for the Greens and a concession for New Zealand First. That's MMP, of course. But Regional Economic Development Minister Shane Jones told me earlier the 57 existing permits mean this is not the end of oil and gas exploration in the regions.
So none of those permits are being summarily changed as a consequence of today's announcement. The people that are currently going to work at the Methanex plant, they're just all going to keep going to work. But it is fair to point out that this is a clear demonstration on behalf of the government by the Prime Minister that the direction of travel is such that we're not going to inherit from the last government international obligations that they sign up to and not actually do something about it at home.
Yeah. But this is a balancing act, isn't it? Because in Taranaki, they are saying this is what we do. In very simple terms, they are scared for their jobs.
And I think that the Prime Minister, when she goes up to Taranaki, will be able to allay those anxieties. But I would say, John, I wouldn't over-catastrophise what we're doing today. It's not unreasonable for a sovereign government to say, right, we've got these international obligations, we've got our regional duties, and I certainly bear them very mindfully. But at the end of the day, leadership, whether you're in metropolitan or provincial New Zealand, does require you to make bold and on occasions make troubled decisions.
Yeah, sure, but troubled for whom? It's not over-catastrophising, surely, to ask if there are 7,000 jobs in Taranaki directly or indirectly dependent upon oil or gas exploration or extraction. What is going to happen to those jobs in the future?
Well, let's just go for a quick journey down New Zealand's history. I remember, because my dad was a farmer, how catastrophic the rogenomic changes were. I don't think it's unreasonable for a government who wants to lay out a strategy going forward and lead a narrative that will have an impact on certain segments of the economy. It should do that. Secondly, this is not undermining other segments in the economy. And as the Prime Minister, I said earlier today, we have an ambitious program for infrastructure. We're going to need the human capital associated with engineering and related skills to provide the services as we achieve our infrastructure
Absolutely,
upgrade.
Absolutely. But speak to those 7,000 jobs.
I don't think it's fair to say it's a net zero-sum game.
No, absolutely. And also, the world changes. I mean, your point about the subsidies is well made, and there will be many of our listeners nodding. But let's speak to those 7,000 jobs in Taranaki, which are very particular jobs. What do you say to the people who say this is not over-catastrophising? What do you say to Neil Holdener, who was saying it is a kick in the guts to the economy of our region? What is your response to that?
Oh, look, I don't want to get into a slanging match with Neil. I met him recently, and look, he's got his job to do. He obviously has to stand up and give voice to the anxieties of some of the community up in that neck of the woods. And I've got no problem with them doing it, in all honesty. But I would say this announcement today does not represent the loss of any jobs of anyone who is currently involved in the oil and gas sector. There is a huge potential field off the coast of Oamaru. I'm told that it could be inordinately large. It could change the entire earnings profile of this sector. Those rights are intact. The new owners are more than both capable and certainly legally entitled to continue to exploit and develop those rights. But this is a long-term signal that our government is going to work not only with the regions, but it's going to be honest. It has to be honest in the sense that we cannot wander around internationally trying to burnish our credentials and then sneak back home and say, oh, well, it's fine to sign up to these international duties and do jack about it. That's not the government that I'm a part of.
Boy, oh boy, people are suggesting that you are swallowing a dead rat here. And I was looking at you at the media conference and you were a one-man meme factory. Your hand was over your face, your arms were... Well, you know, and people are looking. People are reading the tea leaves. Every time you go outside, Shane Jones, people want to see what's in your cup. Are you playing with a straight bat here because you are operating under instruction, or do you really mean this stuff?
Well, for the small number of Kiwis who know me, they know that I'm a fairly expressive sort of character.
Yeah, but what were you expressing? That's the point. What?
A fault. Well, no. I mean, I think I was wiping my brow. It was nothing more than that. But look, I'm not oblivious. I'm not ignorant to the fact that in taking the provinces on a journey of moving from volume to value, which is the dairy reality, from moving from the voluminous exports of logs to manufacturing to bioenergy, that is a big task for any nation as it seeks to change the nature of its political economy. So the point I would have your listeners take on board, this is one sector. Yes, it is a sector that creates a lot of emotional energy. Yes, there were some graphic images with Greenpeace trying to stop drilling, but as a consequence of the rights remaining intact, seismic testing, for example, is not going to be outlawed. It's just going to happen within the context of the many rights that have already been allocated. And to suggest otherwise, I think, is trying to not so much gild the lily, but it's trying to oil a machine that seeks to spread damage and divisiveness.
Shane Jones talking to us from Parliament earlier this afternoon.